23 of this man's albums were nuked overnight with no warning. Oh, wait. So Tunecore's CEO hits him back up to a reported $250 million. Nigga, where's this money coming from? DIYers, I can't bite my tongue on this no more.
DIY.
DIYers, explain to me what the hell is going on with all of these distributors. The distro kids, the Tunecores, really more so Tunecore. I want to stop making stories about the Tunecore. I want to stop reacting about these things, but something happens every single week that brings us back to the conversation about these DSPs overstepping boundaries, habitual line steppers. There is a popular YouTuber as well as recording artist that goes by the name of Benn Jordan, and Tunecore pissed this man off. Terrible decision. I'm going to read this article here on Music Tech, who covered pretty much the beginning to the end of what happened. As the headline reads, Benn Jordan versus Tunecore. 23 of this man's albums were nuked overnight with no warning.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Why would you do that, Tunecore? Here's a direct quote from Benn Jordan. Whether this is malice related to my Spotify criticism or simply negligence, this is dystopian for reasons much larger than myself or my loss of income. Spotify criticism, music gets removed. Hey, that reminds me of me. The song that I did with my guy Sonny Babel, out of nowhere, gets flagged for 96% artificial streams. How do you even get 96% of them? Huh? But y'all okay with 89%. I hate this music version of wrestling. It really sucks. Here's the article. Benn Jordan's music under his alias, The Flashbulb, has been taken off streaming platforms allegedly due to streaming fraud, and he is not happy. Speaking to his audience via his Gumroad page, Jordan recounts the experience of finding his music removed from digital streaming platforms, aka DSPs, last Friday. I randomly pulled out my phone in the studio to reference one of my soundtracks for a composing collaboration. Huh? Nah, my phone's bugging out is what he said. Then I noticed dozens of notifications, various listeners letting me know their feelings regarding my removal of all of my music. What the And just like that, poof, I was erased from Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, YouTube Music, and virtually everywhere music is sold or streamed. I logged into Tunecore, my primary digital distributor, since 2007, and without warning or any communication, they removed a total of 23 albums. That's y'all friend. That shit is crazy. Talking to Twitter, Jordan posted screenshots of his Tunecore artist page in a conversation with Tunecore, which claims Spotify had identified and removed a high amount of streams from his royalty calculation due to evidence of abnormal streaming activity on his releases. Well, if you let my theory from last week tell it, it's because Spotify is over here faking the funk and acting like they got more listeners than what they have. They know there's fictitious listeners and fictitious bots all up and down their platform. That's why they give you that 89%. They know, allegedly. It also claims to have conducted an additional internal investigation and confirmed the evidence. Crazy. He goes on to say, is this literally what happens when you criticize the way streaming platforms treat musicians? You had one job, Tunecore. An internal investigation has confirmed evidence of streaming fraud on Spotify, Jordan writes on X/Twitter. Therefore, the flashbulb and in my other music has been permanently removed from all platforms. 23 albums nuked overnight with no warning or communication. Don't ever let any of these platforms talk about how they champion you as an independent artist or how they respect you as a partner. Partners don't do this. Partners don't do this, not good ones. He goes on to show graphs and actual numbers that support him having real streams. After Tunecore's CEO, he gets an answer on, wait. So Tunecore's CEO hits him back. Andrea Gleason responded to inform him his inquiry would have been handled after the weekend. Jordan responded, I guess the guy who deletes 23 albums without warning or communication works weekends. Because someone deleted that, or some bot deleted that. So somebody can get back to me if 23 of my albums that have been getting him around 300,000 monthly listeners. So the CEO hits him back. Even though I forget what was Homegirl's name, who we did a reaction to when she had to pay the yearly subscription after wanting to work with Graves.
However, this was an opportunity to work with Grimes AI, but only if you used Tunecore. So I had to sign up for a year with Tunecore, and 4 days later, on August 18th, I get this email. Tunecore has blocked Dead from the Start. While we have a no refund policy, a refund for your submissions can be processed under certain circumstances. Please let us know if you have any questions. Please do not attempt to resubmit this content through the Tunecore service, or it will be blocked without refund.
Hey, these companies is broke, my boys. Ridiculous. She couldn't get an answer. Even on Twitter, they hit her back with more bot answers. And so their excuse was that, hey, nobody was working during the weekend. Have a little patience. We'll be back to talk about your 23 albums that got deleted. He retweets this and says, I guess the guy who deletes 23 albums without warning or communication works weekends, and the support staff that deals with the artists and labels affected doesn't. Good thing my 300K monthly listeners don't listen to music on weekends. Jordan has provided Music Tech with a folder of his correspondence with Tunecore along with his streaming history along multiple platforms, including Spotify. One item mentioned that the removal of his music could amount to $500,000 worth of losses if it happens to him.
Somebody's gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
If it happens to him, why in the hell wouldn't it happen to you? He later said that Tunecore's support had finally reached out to him and accused him of fraud. The guy with 288,000 subscribers. Got it. Yeah, that's fraud. You're right. He is now having to meet with legal counsel as a result. Gleason has responded to the backlash. Thanks for the candid feedback and totally agree that we need more and deeper weekend support. This is something we are actively working on expanding. No, y'all are expanding AI. Stop that lie. Whether this is malice related to my Spotify criticism, this is Jordan, or simply negligence, this is dystopian for reasons much larger than myself or my loss of income. While being erased from existence and gaslit is among one of the worst things that can happen to an artist. If there is one fight I was born to fight, it's this one. I have millions of listeners and my music is on over 300,000 active playlists. These listeners pay a fee to listen to this music, and now it seems to be unavailable even if they downloaded it. The streaming music industry is so broken that it can no longer provide the simple transaction it spent billions of dollars trying to replace. You know what's interesting about this one? Shout out to the homie Sid. He sent me this video of this gentleman named Michael Andrew. I want to talk about this one for a second. And he made a really interesting point about how he feels like this is also a reason why some consumer behavior is moving back towards physical media for one important reason. And I want to let him highlight this after he says some things I don't necessarily agree with about Spotify, but let's let him cook.
When radio stations do shine the spotlight on local and indie talent, the impact is undeniable. Spotify's algorithm is a game changer, offering listeners the chance to stumble upon music they'd likely never encounter otherwise. And it doesn't stop at discovery. The platform extends the opportunity to support these artists directly by purchasing physical albums and merchandise through the app.
Ain't nothing direct to consumer about Spotify at all, but I get his point.
This is something I deeply appreciate. Spotify is actively, even though they don't pay very much, is actively enhancing its platform to empower artists.
If you wanted to empower them, you would pay them, all of them, what they deserve and not make a pie system. But that's neither here nor there.
Enabling them to market their products more effectively and, in turn, offering fans a tangible way to support their favorite musicians. Leveraging platforms like Spotify or other, music streaming services is a fantastic strategy for unearthing new music, which you can then immortalize by purchasing on CD.
This is the point we're going to get to. He said immortalize through the purchase of physical media. Curse anybody boy CD? Well, they buying mines, damn it. Run tell that.
Somebody's gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Shameless plug. Extended warranty out right now.
At the heart of it all, it's the music that matters, guys. Yet there's a certain irony in using the very technology that overshadowed CDs as a beacon to guide us back to them. It's about reclaiming a piece of music in its physical form, ensuring its permanence in your collection, immune to the whims of digital availability or disappearance. Have you guys been following the recent developments with Sony and the PlayStation 5? They've been pulling games from the PS Plus subscription service, leaving gamers pretty pissed. This scenario underscores a critical point: the transient nature of digital licenses. It's a vivid illustration of why embracing CDs can be such a wise move. With a CD, you're free from the worry that a distant corporate entity might suddenly dictate what you can or cannot access. It's a stand against the unpredictability of licensing agreements and a nod to the enduring value of owning your own music outright without the shadow of a corporate board's decisions looming over your library.
Talk about it. Talk about it. That's one of the greatest arguments that I've heard for physical media. I always talk about it being a piece of art for the consumers who want to go the extra mile, who love to have things that are tangible, things that are signed by their favorite artists. But this point is really, really interesting, especially as you start to see stories like Benn Jordan's, where his music just poof, magically disappears without his permission from these DSPs. They just magically disappear because of a mistake on the bot system. There are likely people with that many listeners. There are likely people who only have a subscription to access his music and a few others. And now that defeats the purpose of them even having a subscription to that said service. Now, this is going to continue to happen, I believe, and I think it's going to continue to put people in a very, very interesting space, not just the artists. People always make the point that, oh man, consumers don't care that much. They care when the reason that they're paying for a service is a product they have no access to, which is why physical media becomes so important, because nobody knows what's going to happen. Hey, you might have only been listening to a certain song because it was accessible to you on TikTok. You never downloaded, never streamed it, never even looked into who the artist's name was. You kept using it. Now, because of the UMG takedown, it's gone without a trace. And you can't find it nowhere else. UMG took it down. But if you owned a piece of physical media, you would have access to it in some capacity, vinyl, CD. This is important, especially as the unpredictability of licenses and agreements goes the direction that it's going right now. And these DSPs are overstepping their authority, in my opinion. I mean, it's their business, but damn it, you're going to kill other people's business off of a bot error? Let's finalize this article, though. The Spotify criticism that Benn Jordan alludes to includes a variety of video essays posted to his YouTube channel, such as how money laundering with Spotify works and why Spotify will ultimately fail. In his correspondence with Tunecore, he states that he has never been involved in any type of streaming fraud. In fact, I've done extensive journalism to expose it. Music Tech has reached out to Tunecore for comment. What they bot got to say? Jordan is offering his entire discography now in reaction to this for download as a pay what you want. I love to hear it. A pay what you want price tag. Pay what you want, seriously, reads the message on Gumroad. If you're broke, pay the minimum and enjoy the music. If you're generous, this will certainly help me out, as I have had significant portion of my income cut off and may be entering an expensive legal battle. Hey, Jordan, I am so sorry, and I mean this genuinely, that this has happened to you, but I am so excited to see that you're probably going to see an onslaught of support, especially now that you got your listeners activated for reasons that are beyond just you having new music, reasons that are beyond, because you have some content that went viral and drew all their attention, or because you had a killer email, or whatever the case may be. You got people that really love your music, that saw you done unfairly by the platform they thought they were using to support you. Now they're seeing the lack of support on the customer service end that these platforms provide you. And now there's an opportunity for them to not only help you and continue to grow your business as an independent artist, but also to support you in what's likely to be an expensive legal battle. I salute you, and I'm glad to use my platform to continue to highlight this kind of stuff. It happened to me. It happened to Kyle Beats. It happened to Weaver Beats. It happened to all of these folks that I'm seeing within at least my YouTube space and world, that I think is just really, the timing is just odd. And then, if you want to go even further out, look at what happened with Kanye. Now, that was for some obvious reasons because of the samples that weren't cleared. But I don't think any of this is by accident. I really don't.
Nah, and I'm still not content till I'm dominating every single continent.
My shit go stupid. You don't think, then use your common sense. I DIY and I know that I'm a product.
When they play that new king, all the DIYs go crazy. All the DIYs go crazy. When they play that new king, all the DIYs go crazy. All the DIYs go crazy.
Can I draw your attention to this? This is an article that was released a few days ago on Music Business Worldwide, reputable platform. We've covered stuff on here before. This headline got me kind of tripping a little bit though, because I want to paint a picture and I want to even dive into this new deal that Spotify did with Joe Rogan that I think is really interesting timing. Only 19% of artists on Spotify had over 1,000 monthly listeners in 2023. Only 19%. 81% of artists on Spotify had less than 1,000 monthly listeners in 2023. Now, what does that mean in terms of, and I'm going to leave the article here so you can go ahead and read back through it. They go into this section here where they're talking about, you know, the two platforms who have been the most controversial and the most aggressive in changing the way that you're paid on their platforms, Deezer and Spotify. They highlight here France-based Spotify rival Deezer also introduced its own UMG-endorsed artist-centric payout model in September. The model also includes a minimum unique listener threshold, which has been set at 500 in a month. Deezer model sees professional artists defined as those who have a minimum of 1,000 streams per month. You don't have an issue with a platform like Deezer determining what's professional for you? Why is that their business? You are not the judge in law around here. Who allowed them? You got a platform. Congratulations. You don't get to determine who's a professional or not. That's us. Deezer calculates an artist's royalty payments. Streams of that artist's music will carry double the weight versus streams of non-professional artists, those with fewer than 1,000 streams per month by a minimum of 500 unique listeners. So they say here in this article, this is something I want to highlight. Again, we don't know what Spotify's minimum unique listener threshold is. They know that it exists, but for complete argument's sake, if Spotify were to ever set its minimum number of unique listeners as the unlikely but not improbable number of double that of Deezer's, so a minimum of 1,000 monthly listeners, a lot of artists on Spotify would not be eligible to generate royalties.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
Either they're broke, either they're cutting corners, either they don't respect you, either they're not as artist-centric and such a great business plan for every artist on earth, or all of the above. It just seems to be a damn, like, what's going on? What is going on? What is going on? They go from not paying you independent artists, because I'm off of these platforms. They go from not paying you what you're worth to begin with, to now telling you're not even eligible for the pennies that I am going to pay you. Lucky I even gave you that, you non-professional artists. I have not advocated for independent artists to leave these platforms to go direct to consumer because I think it is a different beast. Everybody is not in that position, but I do advocate now. Now I am advocating. You better go create a business outside of these streaming platforms, these unpredictable DSPs, or you may not have a business. Don't let these people determine what your music is worth. Don't let these people determine what's a professional and what's not a professional by metrics that they created out of their ass. Does that make any sense? They're creating imaginary worlds in which they let some people benefit off of it by abusing the system, and other people, they just randomly snipe out and say, yeah, we think that you're abusing it. Don't worry about them. We think you are. We just want you out of here. Sounds like abuse of their power, if you ask me. Allegedly. This also brings me to this really interesting headline here. I've watched the content from this dude. I really don't have a huge problem with him making the money that he's making. But the fact that it's coming from Spotify, ain't that suspicious? Where y'all getting this money from? Controversial podcast host Joe Rogan signs a new deal with Spotify for up to a reported $250 million. Nigga, where's this money coming from? We don't have enough to pay everybody because of these fictitious bots that are on here, even though we'll let you get away with it up until 89%. But we got to create original content because we can't let the three oligarchs take the money out of our pocket. But damn it, we got $250 million for Joe Rogan. Now, I know there's going to be people who are going to watch this video and say, well, that's a no-brainer. It's obviously making them money. But when I started to dive a little bit deeper into this deal, started watching some other YouTube videos to kind of see, like, this deal is different. The original deal that Joe Rogan had, the most popular podcast, by the way, in the world, the original deal was an exclusive deal that didn't allow Joe Rogan to put his full episodes of his podcast on any other platform but Spotify, which makes a lot of sense because they're trying to build up their ad money. They're trying to build up their business as a podcast platform. Must not have went too well because now the new deal is a non-exclusive. He can now put it on multiple platforms. This next video is going to describe or explain why it might have went non-exclusive.
The first thing that stands out is the non-exclusive distribution to all platforms. That tells me two things. Number one, Rogan lost a whole bunch of listeners when he left YouTube for Spotify, and number two, Spotify wasn't making enough money off of JRE to justify giving him another exclusivity contract. Think about it. The only reason why Spotify and Rogan would agree to drop the exclusivity arrangement is because they want to reach a broader audience.
Somebody gonna have to tell the truth, and I'm gonna tell it.
It's too easy. It's too easy. So you mean this risky move that they made to strike exclusive deals with not only Joe Rogan, but the Obamas, Kim Kardashian, and all these high-profile podcasts that we've already done videos showing that they didn't necessarily flip a profit doing this as their original content. This was supposed to profit their business, similar to how when Netflix started doing original content and they went crazy. They stopped caring about the licenses with these major TV shows and movie companies and all of that. This is supposed to be their major shift into having something that's original.
If Spotify had managed to capture the bulk of the podcasting audience around the world, there would be no need to distribute to other platforms, but they obviously need to do it now because they're not making enough ad revenue just on Spotify alone to justify such a big contract with Joe Rogan. And that's also partly Rogan's fault too. He obviously wasn't able to migrate his audience over to Spotify and keep it growing, and what I suspect has happened is that both Joe and Spotify have agreed that podcasting in general has reached its saturation point and the numbers are starting to go backwards. Therefore, to maintain their relationship, they both had to agree to reach a broader audience. Spotify fail, Rogan fail. My other question is, who owns the IP now? Is it still Rogan and JRE or is it Spotify? Because remember, as part of this new deal, Spotify is responsible for distributing the podcast and selling ad space. So I suspect Rogan will just license JRE to Spotify with a whole bunch of conditions, so there's probably nothing to really worry about here. I'm sure Rogan's got some decent lawyers doing all of this for him, and it's not just him and Jamie fumbling their way through the contract with a dictionary and Google. But don't be mistaken, Joe has basically given control of his podcast to Spotify for a fee. I mean, Spotify has basically become a podcast network now, right? Why? Why don't they just stick to music and do that better than everybody else?
That's my question. I hope I'm not inaccurate in saying this, but it seems like they are less fearful of losing money than they are of pissing off the three major labels that got their hands in their pockets for over 70% of every dollar. $250 million. I'm not saying that Joe Rogan's not worth that, because he is. A point with all the fandom, with all the attention around his platform. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. But why is Spotify doing it? Where you get that money from? Little boy, where you get that money from? Remember your grandma used to say that? Where you get that money from?
Now they're doing exactly what Podcast One does, for example, and look how it's turned out for them so far. And so hopefully by now you're asking the question, well, you know what? Rogan could just do all of this himself, right? I mean, why does he need Spotify to do all that distribution for him? I mean, everything's digital. It's not like back in the old Hollywood system where the big studios owned the movie theaters and controlled every aspect of production, marketing, and distribution. It would literally be Jamie uploading each episode onto a podcast hosting site and the RSS feed spitting out the podcast to all of the platforms. I mean, that's how everyone else does it. So why do this with Spotify just so he can make this minimum upfront guarantee, which he would have made 10 times over by just doing it himself?
That part.
I think, honestly, it's mostly ego. If he left Spotify, the perception would be that he failed. The relationship soured and the rumor mill would have been in overdrive. Imagine how happy CNN and the New York Times, Washington Post, and all of those establishment
Crazy ass picture.
hack publishers would be if Rogan and Spotify parted ways for Rogan to go out on his own again. The headlines would be, Spotify cancels Joe Rogan. But the reality would be, Joe just said, screw you guys, I'm going home. I'm just going to do this on my own again. But I also think it's more than that. You see, Rogan wants to be the guy with the deal. If you look at Tom, Bert, Schultz, Shane, Tim, Bobby, etc., none of Joe's buddies have big deals with a major platform.
I don't know Joe Rogan like that, man. But I know he's human. I know he's somebody unafraid. He doesn't bite his tongue for his thoughts and his opinions. But if this is, as the narrator's pointing out, about the look of it, this wouldn't make Joe Rogan no different than the rapper that signs a deal, knowing damn well they don't need the deal, knowing damn well they got enough motion, they got enough team, they have enough idea of how to scale this. But hey, it's easier when you got support. Hey, the look is the look. Think about all the headlines. Think about all the naysayers that have to now, they now got to eat their foot when they see, like, damn, the one we was hating on is making bank now. What you gonna say now? You can't cancel me? I get it to a certain degree, but I also feel like this is just only encouraging independence more in my brain. Right, DIYers? I look at this and I'm like, this is just the direction that things are going. DIYers, I can no longer be political about this. I've been very, very, very vocal about my separation from the streaming platforms. I've been very vocal about how unfair some of these DSPs treat and overstep boundaries with people who are paying them as a business to service their product. Now I can't bite my tongue no more. Get your shit either off of there, have a plan B. Have a space where you at least provide the option for people to buy your music. Don't let these people who don't make music tell you what you can or can't do with your music, because none of them could even predict it from me. As I started to generate income off of albums that dropped a month away from each other, nobody could tell it from me, even though I already had the luxury of a platform that I built over the last 9 years, even though I had amazing music to back it up, even though they know that I've worked with so many reputable people, they still couldn't predict it from me. And neither could I until I took that chance. You, for the survival of your business, for the thriving of your business, for the scaling one day of your business, must put yourself in a position to where, one, you know how to sell. Two, you know the DNA of what it requires for you to sell with a website. Do not wait for these people to decide you ain't got a choice and they kick your ass out there on the streets. Now you got to determine what's up with that website you was talking about, Curtis. Don't let that be the thing. Go use these websites like the Benn camps. Go sign up for these Wixes. Go sign up for the Shopifys and take it one step at a time. There are people out here who are the biggest naysayers of you making an album, the biggest naysayers of you selling your music. They don't make it. Therefore, they don't know how to sell it. They're banking on you being a dumbass artist, a dumbass rapper, a dumbass producer. Don't believe them, first of all. Second of all, you don't have to prove a damn thing to them. When you find a successful model for yourself, you don't got to tell a soul. Just keep working it. But one thing I can tell you is this. Of all the geniuses that I've come across that told me I was stupid for taking my music off of streaming, what you got to say now? It's not even I told you so. What you got to say now? What does your genius guru advice have to say now? Because you have led people to a place that feels like you're working for a company that needs you to meet a sales quota. You're now interns. You went from being underpaid to being interns. You can't call yourself a partner when somebody has more power than you over your own product. DIYers, I can't bite my tongue on this no more. Either exit the shit or figure out an alternative of how to do it yourself. If you take this serious as a business. Now, there's going to be people who watch this shit for entertainment. They don't give a damn. I'm not talking to you. Use them platforms. Figure out how you can game the system up. Do all of the fictitious streaming. Try not to go over 89%. That's your game. But for the people who really do this, the DIYers who see this as a business, you don't got to play their game. You don't got to play their game. You got to figure out how it needs to work for you. You got to figure out what numbers would change the game for you. Don't let these fucking DSPs determine what it is for you to be a professional. You may be blocking your blessings, pursuing everything that you have to work this system that was never made for you to win. It was made for you to stay addicted to the platform. Figure out a way to at least have the option. If you don't want to take your music down, that's fine, but have the option of figuring out how can I use the main product. When you're in the music business, not the record business, they care about the Grammys and the vanity. When you're in the music business, you better figure out a way to make that music generate you income so that you can continue to make the amazing music that you've been making, so that you can continue to connect with the fans that you've already made and the fans that you will make. But playing around with them, you on their timing. And they seem to be on demon timing, if you ask me. Those are my thoughts. DIYers, you let me know yours. DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Don't be greedy. Peace.